She wasn't looking for love. She was looking for salvation. But when an alien single mother crash-landed on a remote Earth farm, carrying only her daughter and a shredded past, what she found might just rewrite the destiny of two worlds. Stay until the end, because the man who opens his door to her might be the last kind soul in a galaxy gone cruel, or something even more dangerous. Za's hands gripped the broken controls of her dying spacecraft. Her eyes were locked on the cracked viewport where the stars outside blinked like cold, distant eyes. The ship rattled violently, alarms screaming as systems failed one after another. Behind her, her daughter Lena clung to her seat, silent but wide-eyed. The child's face was pale, her cheeks hollow. Days of hunger and fear had stolen the spark from her once bright eyes. "Mommy," she whispered. "Are we almost there?" Zaya glanced back. Her voice was calm, but her heart was racing. "Soon, my little star. Earth is just ahead." Za had heard rumors, old scraps of intercepted broadcasts, legends from lost travelers, about a planet called Earth, a place where kindness still existed, a place where people helped strangers without expecting payment. Her homeworld, Orth, had turned its back on her the day her husband vanished. On Orth, family was everything, until you lost one. Then, you were nothing. She had once been respected. She was the wife of Kel, a man with charm, ambition, and power. He had promised her a life of dreams, but dreams turn sharp when they break. Kel had vanished chasing power through illegal trade. He left her behind with Lena, and society left her behind too. Single mothers on Orth were seen as failures. No one cared why. Za refused to let Lena grow up hated. So she stole a broken ship, packed what little food she could, and aimed for Earth. She didn't know what she would find. She just hoped it would be better than what she left. The ship began to shake harder as it hit Earth's atmosphere. Warning lights turned red. The controls sparked. Za cursed under her breath and reached for the emergency landing protocols. She glanced at Lena, who clung to the seat with wide eyes but didn't scream. "I've got you," Za whispered. Hold. On. The descent was chaos. Smoke filled the cabin. Panels burst. The ship spun, dipped, then slammed into the ground with a bone-jarring crash. Silence followed, sharp and endless. Za's ears rang. Her hands shook. She unbuckled herself and crawled to Lena. "Are you hurt?" Lena shook her head. Za pulled her into a hug so tight she could barely breathe. Outside, the world was wet and dark. Rain poured from a gray sky. The ship had landed in a muddy field surrounded by trees that bent in the storm. Za carried Lena out into the cold, her body soaked and trembling. She scouted the area quickly and used parts of the wreck to build a small shelter under a thick tree. Lena curled in a blanket. Za sat beside her, holding a sharp piece of metal like a blade. Her eyes scanned the darkness. She didn't know what predators Earth had, but she knew fear. Fear was always the same. She didn't sleep. Dawn came slowly. The rain stopped, replaced by a low fog. Za sat still, eyes burning from smoke and exhaustion. Then she heard it, footsteps in the mud. Za tensed. She raised the metal shard, ready to fight. A figure stepped out of the mist, tall, broad shoulders, human. His hat was pulled low, hiding his face. He raised his hands. "Hey there," he said softly. "Didn't mean to scare you." Za didn't lower the weapon. "Stay back." The man nodded and stepped back. "All right, I don't want trouble. But you look like you've been through hell. I've got a warm house not far from here, dry clothes, food, you're welcome to come." Za didn't speak. She looked down at Lena, who peeked out from the blanket. Her big eyes stared at the stranger. She was shivering. Za's heart twisted. "Fine," she said sharply. "But if you try anything—" "I won't," he said. "You have my word." He turned and led the way through the wet field. Za followed, holding Lena close, her blade never leaving her hand. The farmhouse came into view. Old, wooden, but strong. Light glowed in the window. The man opened the door and stepped aside. "After you." Za stepped inside slowly. The warmth hit her like a wave. Fire crackled in the corner, a simple table, a couch, the smell of something cooking. Her eyes scanned every corner. Lena whispered, "It's warm, Mommy." Za nodded, brushing hair from her daughter's face. "Stay close to me." The man returned with towels. "I'm Ethan," he said, handing her one. "I'll make soup." Za didn't trust him. But she didn't run either, and for the first time in months she didn't feel completely alone. Za didn't sleep that first night, even as the fire crackled in Ethan's farmhouse and Lena slept peacefully on the couch, wrapped in soft earth-made quilts. Za sat in the dark, blade still clutched in her hand, her back against the wall. Her alien instinct screamed that this was a trap. Kindness always came with a hook. Back on Earth, no one gave unless they expected something in return. Kindness was currency, and trust was foolishness. But here, in this small wooden home, something was off. Not dangerous. Not fake. Just confusing. Ethan didn't ask questions. He didn't touch her or look at her too long. He brought her food, simple warm soup that smelled of herbs and broth, and left her alone. Za watched him closely. Every movement, every sound. He moved with quiet purpose. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice was calm, solid, not like a man pretending to be gentle, like a man who simply had no more energy to be anything else. She understood that feeling too well. In the morning, Za rose before the sun. She found Ethan already outside, hammering a broken piece of fence. The storm had ripped part of it down. He didn't look surprised to see her standing there, arms crossed, eyes cold. "Storm made a mess," he said, glancing over. "Could use a hand." Za stared at him for a long time. Then she walked forward and picked up the other end of the wood without a word. They worked in silence, side by side. The morning mist clung to the ground. A few birds chirped overhead, unfamiliar sounds to Za, but not unpleasant. She watched Ethan out of the corner of her eye. He moved like someone used to doing everything alone, like someone who didn't expect help. That made two of them. Later that day, Lena followed Za out to the fields, eyes wide as she spotted earth animals for the first time. She pointed at a chicken and gasped. "It's so small and fluffy," she whispered, crouching. Za stood nearby, tense but trying to stay calm. Ethan leaned on a post and chuckled. "She's never seen a chicken before?" he asked. Za didn't answer. Ethan didn't push. He just watched Lena with a soft smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a man who had lost something, someone. Za recognized that look too. When Lena tired, Ethan showed them the small garden out back, vegetables growing in neat rows, marked with simple wooden signs. Za knelt beside a strange green plant with thick leaves. "It smells sweet," she murmured. "Basil," Ethan said. "Goes good in soup." Za nodded, but her mind was far away. Basil, earth language, earth food, earth people. Was she really planning to stay here? She didn't answer that question, not even to herself. That night, after Lena fell asleep, Za sat on the edge of the porch. The stars above Earth were different from Earth's constellations. They felt quieter, more distant. Ethan stepped out, a mug of something steaming in his hands. "Tea?" he offered. She shook her head. He sat beside her, leaving space between them. "You planning on staying long?" he asked. Za looked at him. "I don't know yet." Ethan nodded. "Fair." They sat in silence for a while. Then Za said, "You're not scared?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Should I be?" "I'm not human," she said bluntly. "You think I didn't notice?" He replied, a faint smile on his lips. Za turned her face away. "Most people would have run." Ethan looked out at the stars. "I've seen scarier things than you. War does that." Za's gaze snapped back to him. "You fought in wars?" Ethan nodded once. "Lost people, friends, family," Za swallowed. "I lost everything. Ethan didn't say sorry, he didn't offer pity, just nodded again, like two broken things recognizing each other in the dark. "You're welcome here," he said after a while. "No one's looking to throw you out." Za looked at him, her eyes sharp. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," he said. "I saw the way you shielded your daughter when I walked up. That tells me more than words ever could." Za didn't know how to respond. Her heart ached. Her body ached. But something inside her, the tiny part that hadn't died, stirred for the first time in years. She stood and walked back inside without a word. The next day, things began to shift. Za cooked breakfast using Ethan's ingredients. Clumsy, earth ingredients, but Lena giggled when she accidentally burned the eggs and Za couldn't help but smile. They mended the roof together. She asked about tools. He showed her how to use them. Ethan gave Lena a small notebook and a pencil. The girl scribbled strange pictures mixing Orth symbols with earth drawings. She drew the three of them standing beneath a sun with too many rays. Za found the picture that night. She stared at it for a long time. 3 people, 1 house, 1 sun. That night, when Ethan knocked softly on her door to ask if she needed anything, Za opened it wider. "No," she said. "But, thank you." It was a small thing, but it meant everything. And maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't over. Maybe it was only beginning. Za didn't realize she was changing. Not at first. She still woke every morning before the sun, her body coiled tight like a spring. Her first instinct was always the same. Check Lena, scan for danger, locate the exit. But each day, the fear that wrapped around her chest loosened, just a little. Life on the farm settled into a quiet rhythm. Ethan never demanded anything from her, never asked about her past. He didn't act like he was doing her a favor. He simply gave. And that, more than anything, made Za uneasy. Kindness without strings? She'd never seen that before. One morning, Za found Lena out in the garden sitting in the dirt talking to a butterfly. She crouched nearby, careful not to disturb her daughter's rare joy. "It's soft, Mommy," Lena whispered. "Its wings feel like dreams." Za stared. There was no metal, no glass, no flashing lights or screens here. Just earth, air, life. Back on Orth, children didn't play in dirt. They memorized facts, learned posture, recited family codes. There were no butterflies, no dreams. Za had left Orth to save Lena's life. Now she realized, maybe she'd saved her own too. Ethan returned from town that afternoon. He carried bags of supplies, tools, food, spare batteries, and something small, tucked beneath his arm. Lena raced to the porch to greet him. "What is it?" she asked, eyes glowing. He knelt and handed her the bundle. "Open it." She peeled back the cloth, gasping. It was a stuffed toy, hand-sewn, crooked, a little ugly, but soft and colorful. Lena squealed with delight. "I've never had one of these," she cried. Za watched from the doorway, frozen. Ethan glanced up at her. Figured she could use something soft. Za nodded, but her eyes didn't leave him. That simple gesture hit her harder than she expected, not because of the gift, but because he expected nothing back. No thanks, no explanation. Just the joy on Lena's face. That night, Za couldn't sleep. She stood outside, arms crossed, staring up at Earth's night sky. The stars here were so far away. Back on Orth, they seemed to hum. Here they were silent, watching, patient. She heard footsteps behind her. "You always stand like that," Ethan said, "like you're waiting for an attack." "I am," she replied without turning. Ethan leaned against the porch rail, his mug steaming. "Nobody's coming." Za narrowed her eyes. "You don't know that." "No," he said. "But I know you're safe here. For now, that has to be enough." Za hesitated. Then she turned to face him. "You don't ask questions." "Why?" He sipped his tea. People talk when they're ready. Forcing it never works. You're different from the others I've met. Ethan didn't smile, but something shifted in his eyes. You mean the others who betrayed you? Za stiffened. I don't need to know everything, he said. I just need to know who you are now. His words struck something deep inside her, something she'd buried. She stepped back into the house without a word, but that night, she slept for the first time without holding her weapon. The following days brought new changes. Za began to fix parts of the shipwreck, not to leave, just to stay prepared. She scavenged wiring, repurposed metal, and built a silent alarm system around the perimeter of the farm. Ethan watched her with quiet approval. You're good with tech, he noted. She gave a small shrug. I had to be. On Earth, I was someone. He waited, but when she didn't continue, he let it go. That night, Lena drew a new picture. This one had the same three figures, her, Za, and Ethan, but this time they stood in front of a sun that was smiling. Za sat on the couch, holding the drawing in trembling hands long after Lena had gone to sleep. The next morning, Ethan showed her how to ride the old tractor. Za grumbled, cursed, nearly drove it into a fence. But when she finally got it right, Lena clapped wildly, and even Ethan laughed, really laughed for the first time. You're a natural disaster, he teased. Za rolled her eyes but smirked. Better than being useless. You were never that, he said, quieter this time. And just like that, the laughter faded into something warmer, deeper. But peace didn't last. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Za felt it before she saw it, a faint hum in the air. Her skin prickled. Her instincts screamed. She ran to the edge of the field and looked up, a drone, sleek, silent, scanning, Orth tech. She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Ethan appeared beside her, eyes narrowing. What is that? Za didn't answer. Her heart pounded. She grabbed Lena and rushed inside, shutting the windows, locking every door. Her hands shook as she activated her hidden defense panel, a cobbled-together screen showing the drone's movements. Ethan followed, calm but tense. You know what that is, he said. Za looked at him, fear naked in her eyes. They found me. Ethan didn't speak, but he didn't leave either. He simply stepped into the next room, came back with a box. Inside was an old Earth rifle. Heavy, real, used. He set it on the table between them. Then we get ready. Za stared at him, her heart breaking open in ways she didn't understand. She had run from everyone. She had trusted no one. But this man, this quiet, scarred farmer, wasn't running. He was standing with her. Maybe Earth really was different. Maybe humanity still had something Earth forgot. And maybe, just maybe, Za had found a place worth fighting for. Cold. Za didn't speak all day. She didn't eat. She sat at the kitchen table with her arms crossed tight and her eyes locked on the tree line beyond the window. Lena played quietly with her new toy on the floor, casting nervous glances toward her mother. Even she could sense the storm brewing. Ethan didn't ask questions. He worked the fields, chopped firewood, and checked the perimeter fence without saying much. But when the sun dipped low and the farm fell silent, he poured 2 mugs of tea and set one in front of Za. She stared at it for a long time. Then, without looking at him, she spoke. He's not dead. Ethan said nothing, letting her talk. My husband, she continued. Kel, he didn't die in war. He didn't get lost in space. He left. On purpose. She swallowed hard. He told me he wanted to explore, that he was working on something important. Trade routes, he said, new alliances. But it was lies. All of it. Ethan watched her carefully, not interrupting, not judging. He got involved with smugglers, illegal tech deals, weapon sales, things Orth would have executed him for if they found out. I begged him to stop. For Lena. For us. But he was in too deep. She turned to face Ethan now, her voice low but burning. And then one day, he vanished. No message, no goodbye, just gone. And when the council learned what he'd been doing, they came for me. Ethan's eyebrows knit. You? On Earth, family is everything. If a man dishonors his name, the shame falls on the whole bloodline, his wife, his child. Her voice cracked. They stripped our name, declared us fractured lineage. That means no protection, no housing, no food. People wouldn't even look at us. Ethan leaned back in his chair, lips pressed into a tight line. So you ran? I stole a ship. It was falling apart, but it flew. I used the last of my access to hack into an archive and find Earth, a place where families are chosen, not dictated. She paused, trembling. But if that drone was Orthtech, then they've found me, and they'll come to finish the cleanup. Ethan looked out the window. They're not touching this farm. Za laughed bitterly. You don't understand. They won't negotiate. They don't knock on doors. They just erase problems, and they'll erase me. Maybe Lena too, just to be sure. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we make sure they don't get the chance. She stared at him. Why? Why are you doing this? He stood and picked up the mug. Because when my wife died and our daughter got sick, I lost everything. I couldn't save them. But maybe I can save someone else. Za's throat tightened. Her walls cracked. She didn't cry. She never cried. But that night, while Lena slept curled in her arms, Za sat awake and watched Ethan from the doorway. He sat by the fire, sharpening tools, checking wires, preparing, quiet, steady. He didn't know her. He didn't owe her anything. But he was choosing to fight beside her anyway. That choice meant more than any promise she'd ever been given. The next morning, Za dug into the wreckage of her ship. She pulled out a hidden compartment, one even Orth wouldn't have known about. Inside were fragments of advanced cloaking tech, data crystals, a small stunner weapon with a cracked barrel, and one tiny cube. She stared at the cube for a long time. Then she brought it inside. Ethan stood at the table looking over a map. That a bomb? He asked, only half joking. It's worse, Za said. It's my backup. She placed it on the table. Every exile has one. It contains proof of identity, medical history, coordinates, everything. Orth can track this signature if it's activated. Ethan frowned. Then why bring it out? Za met his eyes. Because if I'm going to stay, if I'm going to fight, I need to stop running first. And that means facing what I am. She walked to the fireplace and threw the cube in. It hissed once, then cracked. The heat swallowed it. Ethan stared at her. That was your last connection, to Orth. She nodded. And Orth never did a damn thing for me. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The fire crackled between them. Finally, Ethan whispered, Then it's time to start over. Za nodded once. That night, as the stars returned to the sky, Za stood beside Ethan in the fields. Lena slept soundly inside, safe. For now. But something had changed in Za. No longer just survival. No longer just fear. Now she had something, worth protecting, and for the first time in her life, someone to protect it with. The cube was gone, burned, destroyed, but the past didn't burn that easily. 3 days passed. The drone didn't return, but the air on the farm was different now, heavier, like the silence before a thunderstorm. Za moved faster, sharper. She taught Lena emergency drills, how to hide under the floorboards, how to recognize a danger signal, how to stay absolutely silent. Ethan reinforced the doors and windows, rewired the generator, cleaned the old rifle twice a day. He didn't say much, but Za could feel the shift in him. The easy calm had been replaced by something colder, focused, a soldier waking up. It scared her, not because she feared Ethan, but because she recognized it. That weight behind his eyes, the readiness to lose everything again if it meant protecting someone else. He hadn't said it, not out loud, but she knew now, this wasn't just about kindness. It was personal. One night, while Lena was asleep, Za stepped into the kitchen to find Ethan sitting in the dark, staring at a faded photo in his hand. She paused, her voice quiet. That her? Ethan nodded, not looking up. Her name was May. Our daughter was Ava. Za sat across from him. They were sick. A virus. One we didn't catch in time. Small town, bad medicine, no one to help. By the time we got to the hospital, it was too late. Za lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. He finally looked at her. Don't be, that's not why I'm telling you. She waited. I didn't save them. But that drone? Those people chasing you? I'll die before I let them touch Lena. Za's breath caught. It was the first time he'd said her daughter's name like it belonged to him too, and she didn't correct him. The next morning, Za climbed onto the roof of the barn and mounted a silent proximity sensor she had salvaged from the wreckage. It pulsed blue, barely visible in daylight, but it would light up if anything crossed a 2-mile radius. She felt Ethan watching her from below. You trust it? He asked. I built it. That's not what I meant. She glanced down. I trust you. It was the first time she'd said it. She wasn't even sure she believed it completely, but she wanted to. That night it rained again, cold and fast. Thunder rolled across the hills. Lena crawled into Za's bed, whispering about bad dreams and metal monsters. Za held her tight, brushing back her damp hair, singing an old lullaby, from Orth in a soft voice. Downstairs, Ethan sat on the porch watching the lightning split the sky. A storm outside, but another one was building inside the walls. The next day it happened. The sensor lit up. Za saw it first. She ran into the farmhouse, breath tight, heart pounding. Ethan met her at the door. It's here, she said. Something's coming. They ran to the tree line. In the distance, through the fog, a shape hovered. Not the drone this time. Bigger. A transport pod, sleek, silent, black as space. Orth Za's blood ran cold. It's them. Ethan didn't hesitate. Get Lena inside now. Za sprinted back to the house. Lena was playing on the floor, humming to herself. Za scooped her up without a word, carrying her to the hidden crawl space they'd prepared. Stay here, she said, voice trembling. No sound, not even a whisper. Lena clutched her hand. I'm scared. I know, Za whispered. But you're strong. You're my little star. She sealed the space. Then she stood, turned, and walked back out the door. Ethan was waiting near the barn. The pod had landed in the field, its doors slowly opening. 3 figures stepped out, tall, armored, silent. No weapons drawn. But that meant nothing. Orth. Enforcers didn't need to raise their weapons to kill. They just needed a command. Za stepped forward. The lead enforcer spoke in the flat, perfect language of her world. Subject Za of fractured lineage, you have violated exile law. You are ordered to return for evaluation. Ethan moved beside her. She's not going anywhere. The enforcer didn't even look at him. This is not your concern, human. Za stepped between them. I'm not going back. I've chosen exile. This is my home now. You have no home, the enforcer said coldly. You are not recognized. Your bloodline is erased. Za's voice rose, fierce. My daughter is alive. I'm alive. That's all the recognition I need. The second enforcer took a step forward. Ethan cocked the rifle. That's close enough. The Orth officer tilted his head. You would die for her? Ethan didn't blink. No, I'll kill for her. The moment stretched, tension like static in the air. Then the enforcer spoke again, tone colder than before. Very well, but understand this. Orth forgets nothing. We will return. Za stood tall. So will we. The officers turned, boarded their ship, and vanished into the sky like shadows swallowed by storm clouds. Ethan lowered the rifle. Za exhaled slowly. Inside the farmhouse, Lena peeked from the floorboard opening. Her small voice broke the silence. Are they gone? Za nodded. For now. That night, the three of them sat by the fire in silence. No one spoke. No one needed to. Za looked at Ethan's face, his tired eyes, his steady hands. He had chosen her. Not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because somewhere along the way this broken place had become something real. Not just shelter. Not just safety. Family. She reached over and placed her hand on his. It was a small gesture, but in the quiet firelight, it felt like a war had just been won. The ship was gone. The Orth enforcers had left the farm without a fight, but they left behind something far worse than fear. Uncertainty. Za didn't sleep that night. She sat by the fire long after Ethan and Lena had gone to bed, her eyes fixed on the dying. Flames, fingers pressed together so tightly her knuckles turned white. She kept replaying the enforcer's voice in her head. Orth forgets nothing. No, they wouldn't forget. They never did. Orth believed in records, in bloodlines, in keeping things clean, even if it meant wiping out lives that no longer fit. She'd defied them, declared Earth her home, declared her right to stay. But Orth would return, and next time they wouldn't speak first. Ethan found her there just before sunrise. He poured a cup of coffee, sat beside her, and didn't say a word. For a long time, the silence was enough. Then Za whispered, "They'll be back." "I know," he said, "and next time they'll bring more." He nodded. Za looked at him. "You could still send us away, before they find a reason to erase this whole place." Ethan tilted his head. "You think I'm scared of them?" "No," she said softly. "But I think you've already lost everything once. I don't want to be the reason it happens again." Ethan leaned forward, staring into the fire. His voice was calm. "You're not." "But I am," she said, her voice cracking. "I brought them here. I'm the danger. You're also the reason I believe in something again." Za blinked. "What?" "I was done," Ethan said. "After May and Ava, I just existed, day after day, until you crashed into my field like a damn meteor." Za let out a soft laugh, but her eyes glistened. "I didn't ask for any of this," Ethan continued. "But now that it's here, now that you and Lena are here, I'm not giving it up. Not for Orth. Not for anyone." The fire crackled softly. Za's shoulders dropped. She hadn't realized how tense she was until that moment. A strange warmth filled her chest. Not safety, not yet, but something that felt dangerously close to peace. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a wrinkled piece of paper. He unfolded it and placed it on the table between them. A rough sketch of the farm, notes scribbled around the edges. "What's this?" Za asked. "A plan," Ethan said. "We've got 2 weeks, maybe 3 before they come back. We can't fight them head on, but we can make it a fight they don't want." Za leaned closer. She saw a list: sensor upgrades, reinforced fencing, hidden weapon caches, emergency tunnel through the cellar. "You've been busy," she said. He grinned. "Told you I've done war before." And so for the first time they prepared not just to run, but to stay. Za threw herself into it with everything she had. By day, she helped Ethan rewire old Earth tech with her salvaged Orth equipment, creating makeshift defenses and cloaking fields. By night, she trained with the stunner rifle until her hands no longer shook when she held it. Lena watched them with wide eyes, sensing the tension but not understanding it fully. Still, she helped in her own way, drawing warning signs for the perimeter, naming the motion sensors snappy bugs, and keeping the chickens from chewing on exposed wires. They became a team. Not just survivors, builders, defenders of something fragile but real. Each night they met at the fire, no longer with fear, but with quiet determination. One evening, Za sat on the porch steps, her boots muddy, her back aching from hauling metal beams. Ethan joined her, handing her a mug of warm tea. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what happens after." "After?" she asked. "After they come, after we win or lose." Za looked down. We're not guaranteed either. No, but I need to know. If we survive, do you want to stay? She blinked. You're asking now? I need to know if this... He gestured between them, to the farm, the house, the child sleeping inside, is a fight for survival, or something more. Za stared out at the fields. The wind stirred the tall grass, making the world feel like it was breathing. When I first got here, she said slowly, I was just trying to stay alive. For Lena, nothing else mattered. She paused. But now, I think I want more. Ethan's voice was almost a whisper. Like what? She turned to him. A place to stop running. A place where I'm not someone's shame. Where Lena can grow without fear. Her hand found his. Hesitant. Barely a touch. And maybe a place where I don't have to be alone. Ethan said nothing. Just gently laced his fingers through hers. They sat like that until the stars appeared, glittering above them like tiny promises in the dark. Inside the house, Lena stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about flying dreams and soft wings. The house was quiet, but not hollow. It felt lived in, rooted. That night, Za slept in Ethan's bed. Not beside him, not yet, but there, in his space. A silent trust. And in the stillness before dawn, she whispered to herself, we're not just preparing for a fight. We're building a future. They had stopped being strangers. They had started becoming a family. And whatever came next, Orth soldiers, memory assassins, or warships, they would face it together. Not because they had to, because they chose to. And that made all the difference. The stars above the farm were sharp and bright the night they came. Za woke before the alarm sounded. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was something deeper, something a mother feels when danger draws near. She slipped out of bed without waking Ethan, grabbed the scanner, and crept to the porch. A red pulse blinked on the perimeter screen. They were here. Orth had returned. She didn't panic. Instead, she walked back inside and gently touched Ethan's shoulder. His eyes opened the second her hand brushed his skin. They're coming, she said softly. He nodded, already alert. Then let's welcome them. They moved quickly, efficiently, like they'd trained for this all their lives. Za pulled Lena from her bed and carried her to the hidden cellar, now reinforced with steel plates and connected to the emergency tunnel. Ethan stood at the hatch, watching mother and daughter disappear into the dark. I'll come back for you, he said, kneeling beside Lena. You stay quiet. Stay brave. Lena nodded, her small hand gripping Za's tightly. The hatch closed, with a soft thud. Outside, the wind picked up. Lights shimmered in the sky. 3 Orth transports, black and silent, descending without a sound. They landed in the far field, grass flattening beneath their anti-grav engines. Za and Ethan stood, side by side behind a line of tall grass, both dressed in dark clothing, both armed. You ready? Ethan whispered. Za exhaled. No, but I'm not leaving. He smiled faintly. That'll do. From the ships came 10 enforcers. No words, no announcements, just cold, purposeful movement. They scanned the area with sleek silver visors. Searching, then the lead officer stepped forward, voice cold as vacuum. Subject Za. Surrender. The child will be taken to integration. Za's blood froze. They hadn't just come for her. They'd come for Lena. Beside her, Ethan's jaw tightened. He raised his weapon without hesitation. She's not yours. Neither of them are. The enforcers raised their arms in reply. Energy. Rifles humming to life. Za stepped forward, holding her own weapon. You want me? She called. Then come get me. The ground between them tensed. Then, chaos. The first blast came from Za, her stunner hitting the lead enforcer square in the chest. He dropped like a stone, twitching from the jolt. Ethan took down a second, his rifle booming across the field, like thunder. The traps they'd buried lit up, explosive flash charges and magnetic pulses frying the electronics on Orth suits. But they kept coming. 2 enforcers broke through the right flank, heading toward the farmhouse. Za turned, sprinting after them. She leapt over the garden fence and tackled one from behind, slamming his helmet into the dirt. The other reached the porch, only to be met by Ethan's shotgun, point blank. Wood shattered, light flashed, and then stillness. Smoke drifted through the early dawn air. 3 ships stood silent, their passengers defeated or unconscious. Za stood in the wreckage of the garden, blood on her lip, hair wild, chest heaving. Ethan limped toward her from the house, covered in dirt, a long gash on his arm. They looked at each other, eyes wide. Shaking, they had won. Barely. But they had won. Together. Za dropped her weapon and ran to the cellar hatch. She opened it, heart pounding. Lena looked up at her, eyes full of tears. "You came back," the girl whispered. Za pulled her into a hug so tight it hurt. "I always will." Later, the enforcers were tied and locked inside one of their own ships. The farm was damaged, fences broken, windows shattered, tools burned, but it still stood. As the sun rose over the battered field, Za sat beside Ethan on the porch steps. His arm was bandaged, her face bruised. Lena curled up between them, finally asleep. For the first time, the silence around them wasn't heavy with fear. It was peace. Real peace. "You know they'll try again?" Ethan said after a while. No," Za replied. "But now they know we're not afraid." He looked at her. "You ever think this is what family is? Not the blood, not the rules. Just staying when it's hardest?" She nodded slowly. "On Earth, family was something you had to prove, something others decided you were worthy of." She reached over and took his hand. "Here, I choose it." Ethan looked down at their joined hands. Then he squeezed gently. "I do too." The next few days were spent rebuilding. Neighbors, distant, quiet folk from the edges of town, heard the noise and came to check in. Ethan introduced Za and Lena without hesitation. "Family from far away," he said simply. "Needed help. Decided to stay." No one questioned it. No one pried. Earth, it turned out, still had kindness. It didn't wear a uniform. It didn't ask for backstories. It just opened its door and said, "Stay if you need." Weeks passed. The fields grew green again. The wind softened. Lena chased butterflies through the tall grass, her laughter filling the air like music. One evening, Ethan came inside with dirt on his boots and a look in his eye. He knelt beside Za where she was teaching Lena to read Earth script. "I've been thinking," he said. Za raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous habit." He grinned. Then he pulled something from his pocket. Not a ring, not a contract, just a single old-fashioned Earth key. "For the house," he said. "Not because I think you need permission to stay, just because you belong here now." Za stared at it. Then she took it. Simple, heavy, real. Like everything they'd built. Like everything worth fighting for. That night, under the same stars that once felt so distant, Za whispered words she'd never said out loud on Earth. "Home," she said softly. "We're finally home." And this time, it was the truth. Because on Earth, she hadn't just survived. She'd found something better, a place to stay, a man who stood by her, and a future worth fighting for.